what I think is interesting is the more I share what my personal vulnerabilities are and weaknesses, the more I'm hearing about it from our members. And I think what's super clear for me, at least, is the more you're honest about what you're worried about, the easier it is to see for somebody else to see what your strength is. The more you talk about how great you are at X, Y, and Z, well, number one, what you think you're great at, you're probably not so great at. But number two is the things that you are great at, you don't see. And I think that's the miracle that I've seen in the society is as I watch people engage and as I hear people have conversations, the unconscious competence that exists amongst us is palpable. And it's really uncomfortable to just embrace what your unconscious competence is if you can't define it. So what the heck am I talking about? What is amazing is when you hear people's stories about what it is that they do, a lot of our members are very willing to go do something, to take action. And there are a lot of people inside companies that don't take action and don't do it. And what's interesting is their drive to take action has put them in situations where they've alienated people, and it makes them really frustrated. But the people that they don't alienate are the sales leaders. So there's a really interesting observation across our members about the ability to take action. Another thing that I find really fascinating that's common across our members, we actually connect with one another as people, and this is where I get this broken drum of we're people first, we're people first, we're people first. It's not because suddenly I've become a hippie. It's because I've seen working groups. Once people have broken down the religious debate about sales enablement is this or sales enablement is that, like the Christian or the Catholic versus Protestant arguments in the 1500s, that doesn't get our profession anywhere. When we start realizing and saying, hey, look, you did action and you're coming at it from a marketing background, and you did action and you're coming at it from a training background, and you did action and you're coming at it from a metrics background. Why don't you guys share what was in your head? And then maybe we can combine what was in your head and your head and your head. What if we were to combine it differently? Wouldn't that be great? And once we get there, the amount of collaboration is amazing. It's unbelievable. Another observation is we encourage our members to just pick up the phone and talk to other members. And I know, for myself, that's like not always the most fun thing to do when you're trying to network and don't know folks. But what's amazing is how receptive one member is to another member. It's like an acknowledgement that says, hey, we're in this together. And yes, a little bit of that is therapeutic, because when I've tried to describe this with this phenomenon with other people, I was like, oh, geez, it sounds like therapy. A little bit of it is, but really what it is, it's confirmation. So sometimes when you're surrounded by a lot of insanity, you question your own sanity. And having confirmation is empowering because it gives you the courage to stick with what you know works. It also gives you the courage to go ask other questions. Eventually, what I hope will happen is people will start to feel more comfortable asking questions about what they don't know, or asking questions about how they can take on different things. But that will come, and I think this is all very natural in a profession that's evolving itself. I got to imagine, I'm going way back into the 90s. I used to work for a tech research firm, Metagroup, if you want to fast forward, I was sort of, they were acquired by Gartner, so it would be Gartner Group today. And one of the jobs that I had is I worked with CIOs, and it was really clear there was a difference between a CIO that had a pager and a CIO that didn't. And they both had the same title, CIO, but the ones that had the pagers were just too operationally focused. And they would constantly alienate their executive leaders. And the ones that didn't sat in and just listened to the executives and just would replay back what they heard and said, this is how we could do things. And those people, at least, were much more successful. And what emerged was a lot of those executives were able to talk to each other because it was part of the profession. So now it is much more common for CIOs to have a business background. But what I experienced there was that emergent from CIOs having a technical background to CIOs having a business background. And I think the easiest way to delineate was that pager. The pager people were so hyper focused on making sure the router was working or making sure that they had the right bandwidth or feeling very defensive about making cases. They didn't skate ahead of where things were going, and none of those people ended up in those more elevated positions. So I think what we can do is over time bring more perspective if we're able to keep that curiosity going that works amongst our members. If we can take this unconscious competence that exists of fixing things, and if we can just be more open and recognize that we're in a massive state of change and there's a lot of opportunity, what's going to happen is that our members are going to come together and help each other out. It's already happening in small, tiny pockets. What we have to do is we may have to make it bigger for everything else. And that's one of our goals of our society, is to be able to help create the right kind of culture, the right kind of environment to unleash that kind of miracle support that happens when people show up who have a lot of individual skills, a lot of talent, but can take advantage of a diversity of different thoughts, process it and practice it and role play it so that when they go back into their companies, they can execute it.